dum-dum, beetle-dum-dum, beetle-dum-dum, beetle-dum-dum. There was a turtle by the name of Bert, and Bert the turtle was very alert. When danger threatened him, he never got hurt. He knew just what to do.
Duck and Cover. This is an official civil defense film produced in cooperation with the Federal Civil Defense Administration and in consultation with the Safety Commission of the National Education Association.
When I get to the bottom, I go back to the top of the slide. We'll stop and a turn and a go for a ride till I get to the bottom and I see you again. Yeah, yeah. But do you, don't you want me to love you? Coming down my spine.
Television becoming economically available to the average American household during the mid-20th century revolutionized how Americans view politics and foreign affairs.
Revolutionized communication, as far as I'm concerned. You know, you could see these things as opposed to hearing them. It's just much more vivid. It's like a picture's worth 1,000 words, they say. But TV coming into being made everything more vivid, particularly Vietnam.
Vietnam is recognized as the first televised war. It was the first time that the American citizens could actually see what was going on in a war. This caused Americans to develop individual opinions, which is what led to the huge nationwide movement against Vietnam.
In '68, of course, and you guys were talking about this, Walter Cronkite, who was clearly the most famous TV journalist of his generation, he went to Vietnam, and he came back, and he went on TV and he basically said that the war is unwin.
To say that we are closer to victory today is to believe, in the face of the evidence, the optimists who have been wrong in the past. To suggest we are on the edge of defeat is to yield to unreasonable pessimism. To say that we are mired in stalemate seems the only realistic, if unsatisfactory, conclusion. On the off chance the military and political analysts are right, in the next few months we must test the enemy's intentions in case this is indeed his last big gasp before negotiations. But it is increasingly clear to this report that the only rational way out then will be to negotiate, not as victors, but as an honorable people who lived up to their pledge to defend democracy and did the best they could. This is Walter Cronkite. Good night.
Walter Cronkite's opinion about America's involvement in the Vietnam War did two things: reaffirm the perspective of the war for younger generations, as well as defeating the preconceived notions held by the older generations, changing the tone of the war in America.
The Gulf of Tonkin incident happened in Vietnam. Okay, they were alleged to have attacked 2 American destroyers. It was doubtful in case of one of them, the other one was confirmed. So prior to that time, there were some Americans in Vietnam. When they attacked the 2 destroyers in the Gulf of Tonkin, Congress gave President Johnson the wherewithal to do whatever was necessary to stop the Viet Cong attacks, or the North Korea or Vietnam attack. How was it portrayed? It was portrayed as an act of aggression. But the environment at that time was stop the flow of communism. And Westmoreland convinced Johnson that we needed to send troops over there. That was the environment at that time. They were portrayed that to the news. The news took off on it and made it a point of issue to support what was happening. Oh, I think they were getting the true picture, but I don't think as time went on, I think it became less and less acceptable to them. Mm-hmm. See, what's happened? You see this on TV at night. Mm-hmm. First time they've gone on the battlefield and shown the American people exactly what's happening. On TV, you can see it. Actual battle.
Despite week-long airstrikes by U.S. Air Force jets, the Viet Cong have shown no signs of withdrawing. Out there, the enemy is creeping in. He will try to overrun the American positions. The waiting is agony. This is it. Live or die.
On the topic of nuclear deterrence, JFK once said, "Mankind must put an end to war, or war will put an end to mankind."
The increasing intensity of the arms race became such a great fear throughout America that the media and the government began to work together in order to quell the fears of the American people. This joint effort led to some of the most influential pieces of propaganda during this period of time.
I think the idea was that I think people during the Cold War felt totally helpless. So I think the idea was that there was something we could do as individuals or perhaps as a school, as a community in the event of war. But because I think overall, almost everyone who lived through the Cold War felt really helpless about it.
Not just with television and modern media, but throughout the ages, governments have used tactics to coddle their citizens into a false sense of public safety. However, this was rarely noticed worldwide until the Cold War brought the threat of world destruction through nuclear war. Duck and Cover and other such propaganda films were used to make viewers feel safe and as if there was a plan for protection in case nuclear deterrence failed. From the evolution of television came a new evolution in politics and its relation to television and the American people. Not unlike the media's effect on Vietnam and the Cold War, there were many political aspects that were heavily affected. In 1960, the first presidential debate was shown on television between John F. Kennedy and Richard Nixon. This began a new relation between television and politics that was unprecedented.
Good evening. The television and radio stations of the United States and their affiliated stations are proud to provide facilities for a discussion of issues in the current political campaign by the two major candidates for the presidency. The candidates need no introduction. The Republican candidate, Vice President Richard M. Nixon, and the Democratic candidate, Senator John F. Kennedy.
The debate began with the full knowledge that all eyes were on both presidential candidates. For the first time, citizens were able to see the gravity and power in which the speaker conveyed. In this debate, Nixon's nuances ultimately led to his demise as he was no match for Kennedy's steadfast charisma and stability. The television once again proved to be revolutionary as people who listened to the debate mostly thought Nixon had won, while people who had watched the debate on television thought that Kennedy had won because the people who had simply listened to the broadcast could not see the sweat that poured down Nixon's face. The broadcast of the 1960 presidential debate, Walter Cronkite's broaching of the Vietnam War's destitute reality, and the media's attempt to ensure the image of public safety at the time of the Cold War all set precedents for modern media and turned the television into the primary source of information for Americans.